It's dummy.
Okay.
I can, yeah, no problem. I wasn't sure. Um, yeah, I think it's very important to call out, networking. I forgot the phrase, that they say your network is your net worth. In some cases, that's very true. As a founder, you want to, push yourself out there, go for a lot of these mixers, conferences that happen, tech conferences, because even if you're not meeting investors, you're meeting peers, you're meeting future customers. And I feel like in every case, it will help you validate what you're building. In terms of building that network for VCs eventually, it's very key because even if you're not currently fundraising, you're building that relationship. And just think about it from the lens of an investor. It's sometimes easier to give away money to someone you already know and trust. And, like, if you've already been following their track record and see firsthand what they're building, then it just feels easy to be able to say, yes, I already know this company, I know this person, I want to put that money. So, in this case, be very intentional about building out these networks, and just leveraging them for other connections as well. Because even if you don't potentially get money from this VC or from this person, I can guarantee they can introduce you to someone else that could potentially either give you that funding you're looking for or that business advice, or introduce you to someone else that you need to be in contact with.
Awesome. So, yeah, women founders should be doubling down on networks. Okay, awesome. Thank you, Dami. So, a question for both of you. What are the key indicators that tell you that a startup is actually ready to scale? I know you've touched about the strategies on how they can scale, but just to mention the few key indicators that lets you know that this startup is actually ready to scale, and what should founders have in place. I know you've talked about product market fit, so just mention the key indicators, and then we can move into the next segment. So, Hannah, let's start with you.
Yeah, I'm happy to speak to key indicators, and then I want to have a turn to come back to mentorship and networking because I I actually think that deserves more time because it's so key in so many ways to all of this. At the end of the day, I think yeah, network, net worth. There's all kinds of little metaphors like that, but I think there's so many things about this that are critical to not just finding ways to scale your business up, but also making it possible to make it through the difficulty of life as an entrepreneur, as a founder. It's sometimes lonely. I know that sounds cliche, but it's not untrue. I think Debbie and I, again, Phyllis too, can all talk about how we've had these interactions and experiences with people who are building businesses who have said the same. Even though they're surrounded by people, it sometimes can feel like a hard road. And so I want to come back to that if I can, just give my answer to that question. But in the meantime, I'll speak to these key indicators, give Demi the opportunity to do so. And then if I can have a turn at the mentoring networking question, that would be great. I feel that we've been talking about some of the key indicators along the way throughout the conversation. So I'll just speak to a few more and then pass the mic. Again, yes, product market fit, it's consistent demand, repeatable operations, and ultimately leadership capacity or capability. So again, if the founder, the woman founder, the leadership team, if you're doing everything yourself, or if you're fixing a core workflow manually, if there's something that's really critical to the day-to-day operations that has a backstop at one person, or that's you, or there's a decision making process that gets stuck and keeps things from continuing to move. That's got to be solved. So scaling, again, it's about replicating success without the infrastructure, the internal systems collapsing. So that requires really a lot of clarity on what you're building, why you're building it, trust in the team, and then systems that don't rely on you being in every room.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Hannah. Yeah, I'll give you a special segment before we finish on, so that you can touch on mentorship and networking. And now, I would like for us to move into the insights part. So, my favorite part. What's one piece of advice that you can that you wish to give to someone that you wish would have been given to you when you're starting your funding journey? And Hannah, I think this best applies to you. So, yeah, go ahead.
Ah, the one sentence is always so hard. This is a thing we skipped at the beginning, but I studied philosophy, so it's very hard for me to be short-winded. I'll try. I think it's something along the lines of build in alignment, scale in community, and um, don't underestimate the power of your experience and your story, because especially as a founder, that is going to be one of your strongest currencies. So,
Awesome. Build in alignment and scale with community. Sorry, that was such an interesting quote. I just wanted to get exactly what you said. You said build in alignment and
yeah,
scale.
scale in community, and don't underestimate the power of your story, your experience as the founder. That's a
Wow.
big part of uh, what's going to make you successful.
Wow, that's a really great quote. Thank you so much, Hannah. And now I'll move to you, Dami. You've worked with early stage startups, and um, what are your thoughts on the future of women-led businesses? I know you haven't specifically worked with women-led businesses, so we'll keep this as general as possible. What are the what are the trends that you see and opportunities that our audience should be aware of? So these trends and opportunities can be so when I talk about trends, you can let us know of the positive trends that founders in this audience can actually take advantage of, and this can help them scale and get adequate funding for their businesses or startups. Yeah.
Yeah, I really loved Hannah's quote. I'm still thinking about it. But in terms of what I like see as like the future of funding for women, I think there's just a lot of positive momentum with the gender lens investing in itself. Majorly a lot of funds that are emerging, as well as like funding models and pooling capital that are specifically favoring women led startups. So it's just important to take advantage of that and know where that capital is being pooled. So I think, for example, some investors who are specifically like focused on gender inclusivity are like Kula. I think that's a fund based out of South Africa. There's Catalyst Fund under BFA Global, and then Rising Tide Africa. We know there isn't enough funding for women-led startups yet, but there's research that shows, women-led startups does outperform their male counterparts in so many ways, either in the revenue that they're generating or the return on investments that they're bringing in. So I think just in general, like a general trend that we'll see is smart capital emerging to follow this trend. And I think the key thing for founders, especially female founders, is follow the money and know who your target audience should be if that is the pathway that you want to follow. I think in general, if you're building something and everything aligns, and investors are able to understand your vision, a lot of times, you know, it all goes beyond gender considerations. But sometimes we need to be able to be at the forefront for women in some cases and really like shout that, yes, we're here. And I think we also just need male allies. A lot of male founders need to bring in female founders who are just or mostly more capable in some ways and some spaces, to just bring in female founders as well. And I think in terms of sectors as well, just my personal experience, I think I've seen a lot of female founders stem more from like health tech a lot of times. So, I
Yes.
mean, I don't know why, but that's definitely a trend that I've seen. So, yeah, I think just I'm hopeful that more capital is going to more female founders. It wasn't last year wasn't a great year in terms of the metrics. It went down, but I'm hoping there's an uptick and we see more female founders coming out.
Awesome. And thank you so much, Debbie. And you mentioned something about making sure that when you're pitching or reaching out for funding to investors, that they're able to understand your vision. So I know a lot of founders are usually very passionate, but there might be some disconnect when you're actually pitching to an investor because they're not able to see the same vision that you have. And what advice would you give to them? So you can say an advice, and then Hannah, you can also say an advice to them. So, what advice can you actually give to them that can help them uh, make their vision more profound to investors they're actually pitching out to? Yeah.
I think it's just one of those cases where it's keep it simple. I
Mm,
find when I speak to founders, I'm more inclined and generally more interested when I understand what you're building. Like I can, spit it back to you like, oh, this is what you're building. I totally understand that. Like I understand the market that you're in. I understand the customers that you're serving. I understand how your product works just off of that first conversation. And I think that comes a lot of times with practice. Practice with like the everyday person. Because a lot of times, if you're talking to someone else that's not in your space, they will have a lot of questions. So,
yeah.
like, practice with them before coming out to like a VC and investors with what you're building. You want to make it as simple as possible for them to be able to understand because I guarantee everyone wants to be able to just like understand like a fifth grader whatever you're doing. So do that practice and be ready to just help them understand why they should invest in you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. So keep it simple and nice. Hannah, do you have any advice you can give on that?
Yeah, I'm going to kind of piggyback on what Demi just said, and I'm going to go back to some of these emerging trends and opportunities in the funding landscape too, kind of connect the dots.
Yeah.
Because I think to that point about simplicity, I also think that a trend that I feel I'm seeing a lot of in the last few years, and this is going to connect to kind of the final thing that I want to have folks have as an important takeaway, which is how to build and a tool that people need, I think, to build it, that everyone needs to be using. But this trend, I think, is a move towards more founders building in public. So, like creating community, building those relationships before they've raised capital, traction before they get to the term sheet, and using platforms like LinkedIn, X, formerly Twitter, TikTok. All of these are becoming visibility engines for underrepresented founders, and that visibility can build leverage.
Yeah.
So we are seeing examples of women raising capital not because they just found the right pitch, but because they're also building community trust, relationships, market proof, and momentum on their own terms. And so that these hybrid funding models that Demi was referencing, I think these are all encouraging and hopeful data points, even amidst continued systemic bias and issues that we're going to be fighting and dealing with and finding workaround solutions to for a long time. And allies are key, co-founders are key, all of those things. And then the other thing I wanted to mention, as I think, honestly, one of the most transformative shifts shaping the future of funding and scaling for women-led businesses is honestly, I think it's the rise of artificial intelligence, AI-powered tools and infrastructure. So what I mean when I say that is that I think we're at a moment where the barriers to entry that several of the ones that have historically held women and underrepresented founders back are actually being fundamentally reshaped. And so while funding access still isn't equitable, access to capacity is changing very fast. And what I mean by that is with the right AI tools, even a solo founder can now operate with the power of a small team. So We can test messaging. We can generate investor-ready pitch decks. We can automate customer workflows. We can prototype product ideas. We can conduct market research. We can map financial models. All of these things in days and not months. And that used to take consultants, analysts, grant funding. Now it takes the right tools and a little bit of technical fluency. So for women founders, and especially those outside of traditional funding centers or major startup ecosystems, I really do think that this is a critical inflection point. The question isn't just how do I get capital? It's also how do I use what's already in my hands to create momentum, traction, and visibility. And I think AI can level parts of the playing field, but only if we actually integrate it into how we build and validate and grow. And so this is on another level impacting how funders are evaluating opportunities. Investors are also increasingly drawn to founders who have AI literacy. So folks who understand how to leverage these tools to scale leaner, move faster, demonstrate efficiency. So whether you're bootstrapping or venture seeking, in my opinion, learning to use AI isn't really optional. It's a competitive edge. And you could almost call it a feminist intervention because it can help redistribute power and possibility to those who've historically been left out. And that's only going to be true if we jump on it now. So I'm hopeful, but I think this is urgent. The tools exist and the access is more open right now than it's ever been. And the time to build this capacity to experiment, to get fluent is now. We can't afford to fall behind. So I think the phrase would be like, if venture capital or VC is like the gate, AI is the key, and every woman founder deserves to know how to use it. And I think maybe I'm offline because I can't see anybody else anymore. But anyway, that's my piece. Hopefully everyone comes back.
Hi, Anna. I am terribly sorry for that.
You're back. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, my lights just went off. It was really weird. Yeah, I'm sorry for everyone watching. Um, yeah,
Well, hopefully
Dummy dropped.
it's uninterrupted. I was just sending you to a note. I said, maybe this is still going.
Yeah, yeah, we're still live. Sorry for
Okay.
that, everyone. Yeah, so you were, sorry, just to take you back. We're talking about the opportunities that women-led businesses can actually take advantage of.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't get to hear till the last moment. So, were you done explaining that to our
Oh
audience?
yeah, I think I got through my piece, so hopefully it all went through to everyone. But if anyone has follow-up questions or something got cut off, folks
Yeah,
can put something in the chat. I think we're probably like close to our Q&A section anyway, so
yeah,
happy
yeah.
to
We
answer any
are
questions that
okay.
come up.
Yeah. So you're good. And sorry, is Dami here? Or she dropped off? Okay. So you had mentioned something. You had mentioned about mentorship and networking. So I wanted to keep that part for the last because I feel like we really need, as women, we really need like guidance on how to effectively utilize the networking platforms we are part of, because we don't really. Some of us might see the need, but I think talking with regards to a majority of the women, we usually just like to let the work speak for itself, which might not be the best strategy as you're building a business or building a startup. So, yeah, we're here for the advice you have for founders to actually take advantage of mentorship and networking platforms to scale and get funding.
Okay, sure. I'm happy to ramble on about that again. Thank you for the opportunity. As I was starting to say earlier, I really do think that mentorship and networking are two of the most critical pillars of entrepreneurship, especially for women founders navigating unique challenges within business ecosystems. And in my personal experience, they're often the hidden engine behind successful ventures. Like, I don't mean that in a cliche, inspirational way. I mean that in like a practical, survival-oriented way. The founders that thrive over time are not just the ones with great pitch decks or polished products, but they've built relationships they can rely on for insight, referrals, support. When everything is on fire and you need someone to tell you you're not crazy, it provides a guiding light, helps you refine your strategies, build your
Yeah.
confidence, learn from someone who's already walked the path. And networking, on the other hand, can connect you with resources and relationships and opportunities you need to scale and make your business successful. It's not just advice, it's access. Mentors who believe in your vision will introduce you to investors, potential collaborators, sometimes even new markets you haven't considered. And it can also help us overcome the biases we are facing in male-dominated sectors by lending credibility and support. So mentors, our network are huge things for both of those things. And so networking complements mentorship by also helping us create partnerships, meeting customers, uncovering resources. And as I said earlier, it's powerful because it challenges isolation. And if you tap into the right networks, you're part of a growing community, especially if you meet other founders of women who are innovating across sectors and you don't have to do it alone. So of course the question is how and where, and there's several different types of ways to do it and channels. Women-focused networks. There are different platforms across the continent. Lionesses of Africa, She Leads, the African Women Innovation Entrepreneurship Forum. Funding resources, training programs, and visibility are available through these and other kinds of networks of this ilk. Also, I think you've both mentioned incubators, accelerators, and pitch competitions. So there's many programs like these: Google for Startups, UN Women's We Empower Africa, Seed Stars Africa, ways to share and refine ideas in front of professionals in the ecosystem. And of course, conferences and meetups, we've mentioned those: Africa Women in Tech, Startup Grind, you name it. Tons of these are in Nairobi and elsewhere. But these are opportunities to learn from others, collaborate, sometimes meet potential funders. And if you can't make it in person, sometimes they're virtual. Then, here we are on a digital platform. So platforms like these, incredible resources to connect with industry leaders and peers, WhatsApp groups, Telegram communities. Some of them are geared towards female entrepreneurs in very specific geographies. So these can be hubs of collaboration and support. And then, kind of the founding rules of networking, always creating mutual value. So it's not asking people for favors, it's creating relationships that benefit both sides. So bringing your skills, your ideas, and your connections to others, that generosity is reciprocated tenfold if you show up in a generous way. So yeah, I can say more, but I have a tendency to say too much already. So I can stop there.
Yeah, and you've mentioned a lot of platforms, a lot of communities and tips there, and I'm just hoping the audience is able to catch up on some of the communities and platforms you mentioned. So if you didn't get that, we are going to make this recording available, so don't worry about that. You will listen at your own time and mark communities. Okay, so we are actually now at the Q&A session. So for those joining us, if you have any question for our panelists right now, they are available to answer. So just drop your question, where you're joining us from. So if you're joining from Twitter, just drop a question in the reply section. If you're joining on YouTube, just drop a comment, and we will read it and answer it. Same as with LinkedIn too. So feel free to ask any question you have, and yeah, we have amazing panelists who are ready to answer your questions. So yeah. Let's see. I'll just be checking all the platforms to make sure that I capture all the questions. So we don't have a question yet on YouTube. Okay.
I also, while we're looking at those different
Mhm.
channels, I would just say that for anyone watching or going to watch this later, I think maybe our information is on here somewhere, but I feel free to connect on
Yeah.
LinkedIn, send follow-up questions directly. Yeah, happy to speak with anyone who has a question that we didn't cover today.
Yeah. Hopefully, us dropping off didn't disconnect on their end. But okay, let me still check. Um, I'll make sure to add your LinkedIn as a repost to all these live videos. So yeah, everyone will be able to um, get in contact with our panelists today and know their handles. Not seeing a question. Okay, so five.
That must mean we were perfect. 10 out of
I
10.
love to hear that.
We covered everything that could
It
be
happens
covered.
once in a lifetime. I have to sit with it. It's relish it. It might not come again.
Well, maybe okay. If someone is listening to us, or maybe they haven't gotten to this section yet, I'm also hoping that's the case. But if we covered everything, that's so great. That's so great. So if you have a question and you didn't actually get to ask it right now, and you're watching this video later on, just feel free to reach out to Hannah Levinson on LinkedIn, Dami Olonilua on LinkedIn as well. And I'll do my best to include for the follow up post that we're going to make, we're going to tag them as well. So you'll get access to them, and they're open and free to answer any question that you have. And so I was your moderator for today, and I hope this session was very insightful for you, as we expected it to be. And yeah, so Hannah and Dami, I would like us to end this session with a parting shot. So to the founders joining us here, I know some of them might be struggling with some aspects of the funding or scaling journey. So yeah, what's like the last parting shot that you can give to them to give them some encouragement or a piece of advice? Yeah, please feel free.
Demi, I feel like I've been talking forever, so you go first.
Sorry, I think I cut off a bit. So just a piece of advice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I would say is just focus on yourself and what you're building. Um, like Hannah has also mentioned, network. Learn as much as possible from the people that you're meeting, both peers, other entrepreneurs, as well as investors that are out there. And everything will, align as you keep building. So focus on you.
She read my
Awesome.
mind. Yeah, I was going to say something very similar. I think you start with where you are with what you have, and you need to stay close to the problem that you're solving. The clearer you are about who you're serving, why it matters, the more everything else, funding, traction, and growth will start to align. So you don't have to scale fast, you have to scale true. So trust that building something aligned, rooted in your values, intentional, is powerful, and it's enough to start with.
Awesome. Those are some excellent pieces of advice. And thank you so much for your time and for sharing your insights. I wish we had more time to ask more questions, but yeah, our time here is done. But I really appreciate your time. And like I mentioned, if you need to catch up with any of our panelists today, just reach out to Hannah Levinson on LinkedIn, Dami Olonilua on LinkedIn as well. And thank you so much for joining today. I hope the session was insightful and have a nice weekend. Bye, everyone.
You as well. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.